Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. It is a Week 10 recap quarterback review show. Myself and Seth Galina here with you guys to talk about three quarterbacks. One, Drake Maye. We're going to check in on Drake Maye, how he's playing. We're going to talk about Russell Wilson, obviously since taking over as the starter with the Pittsburgh Steelers and how he has changed that offense. And then we got to keep tabs on Bo Nix as well. We got to keep tabs on that rookie who almost did his part to march into Kansas City and Arrowhead and get a victory, although, of course, we know that the Chiefs blocked that kick and stayed undefeated. But Bo did his part, and we're going to talk about that in his performance because I do think that it was impressive. Seth, how are we doing today, my friend?
We're good. We're full of ginger and turmeric, whatever. The most disgusting thing I've ever tasted in my life, but we're trying to get well this year.
That's very adult. That's very responsible of you. I'm very proud of you for that. For those who did not have the pleasure of doing so, Seth basically took a shot of whatever this concoction was right before we went live, and it was essentially the same result as smelling salts. Like when you see athletes do smelling salts on the sideline where they, immediately smell and it's just like, oh, and they just don't know what their body is doing after that. That was essentially Seth with the sound effects in there involved. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. But you're feeling good. You're on a cleanse. You're on a journey to make sure that you don't get sick this winter. Is that what this is?
I've been on a journey for 36 years, and we're trying to stay on the right path here, and just like these quarterbacks we're going to talk about, just trying to stay on the right path.
Excited to hear about your darkness retreat at some point because I know that that's kind of what's coming next. When you get closer and more in tune to nature, I know that we're going to get there for you next. Let's talk about Drake Maye first as we get into these quarterbacks. If you guys don't have a PFF subscription, by the way, you can go to pff.com or subscribe.pff.com and make sure you get one as we are talking about all sorts of numbers and grades here of these quarterbacks. You can do so on your own time or as you follow along here on this show. So Drake Maye, let's talk about it here. Big time win for Drake Maye last week, 19-3. His team takes down the Chicago Bears. It was a good win for Drake Maye, although, of course, I think the story is probably a little bit more about Caleb Williams for most of the audience, but we're going to focus on the positive. We're going to focus on what Drake Maye's been able to do. 15 for 25 in this game, 184 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It's not like he lit the world on fire, but as you were reviewing the tape last night, Seth, I will quote you when you put in Slack, he's the sickest player in the league, and so I don't know how hyperbolic that would have been, but obviously you were enjoying some of the things that you saw from Drake Maye. So let's talk about him, what he has been in his first couple of starts, and then what you saw against the Chicago Bears this past weekend.
Yeah, so the reason I say he's the sickest quarterback in the league is because you're excited to watch him, right? I think, we're going to talk about Russell Wilson a bit later, but like Russell Wilson's not like super exciting to watch, especially at this point in his career. He used to be, but you just want to go in and watch and have fun watching a quarterback, even if like the results aren't necessarily there, even if maybe the accuracy on a down-to-down basis isn't really there, and Maye gives you that right now. And I do think he's going to be a really good quarterback. There's some stuff to work out. I think besides me telling you he is the sickest quarterback in the league, I also said that in capital letters, he has to stop doing a dumb thing once or twice or 3 or 4 times per game like that. Like he threw the interception to end the game versus the Titans. Certainly a lot of that was him just feeling himself and thinking he could just beat the safety with the throw. There's the interception he throws where he throws it right to, I think, a linebacker in the flat against the Bears. Like just stop doing the quote unquote a dumb thing every once in a while. But what I really love about his game is his ability to, he's playing on time. He's throwing the ball pretty accurately. I just love his ability to get out of trouble in tight quarters. You have to have some sort of, to play in the NFL, you have to have some sort of ability not to take sacks, right? Like we've talked about this for every quarterback we talk about basically. And for him, his ability is getting out of tight quarters. Like for for a Drew Brees or a Tom Brady, the ability to get out of sacks is throwing the football quickly and knowing where you're going with the football. Obviously, he's those guys were, when we talk about them, they're older players, veteran players. He's a rookie player, so he doesn't have that yet. But if you can have the ability, even as a rookie, to get out of trouble, and it's very different. We're also going to talk about Bo Nix later, and Bo Nix is a very different way of doing that kind of same thing. That's where it's super exciting to watch, because he gets out of trouble. You can't really tackle him. He's a big guy. He's very athletic. Once he gets going down the field, tough to stop once he picks up momentum going forward. So that's why he's super exciting to watch. They obviously don't have a ton of receiving talent. They don't have a ton of offensive line talent. And you're hoping that, going forward, that this team finds some players to help him in those regards, or maybe some of the guys that they already have developed further. So that's kind of where I am with Drake Maye. Like, I'm not saying the results are perfect right now, but they look like they're going to be really good if he keeps on this kind of developmental path.
Yeah, the game was even more of a roller coaster than necessarily the one touchdown and the one interception, which is, why you have PFF and PFF stats here. 3 big-time throws, also 3 turnover-worthy plays. So it was even more up and down than I think the stats would showcase on just the common box score. And I think that certainly his tape reflects that, right? I mean, I think that you could see all that stuff there. What impresses me the most about Drake Maye and why I'm glad that he's starting for this team is, you mentioned, not that it's perfect. It's not that it's even more, on script than maybe Jacoby Brissett could have had this offense with, but you need the explosive. Like, you need the sort of get-out-of-trouble talent that he has, and I think you put it a really good way there, because I've really loved watching that with him. And then specifically, I'll add this too, his arm strength, particularly the velocity to attack over the middle of the field, is really impactful. I mean, it opens things up a ton. Certainly when he starts to get those, the touch and the accuracy and the feel for the deep shots outside of the numbers, like all of that will come into play, because as he attacks over the middle of the field, which we saw some deep crossers, some deep in routes from him. There was one situation, I can't remember if it was like a 2nd and 15 or a 3rd and 15, where you said to yourself, all right, well, they're not really converting this. And he was able to drop back and look over the middle of the field and fire it right at where the sticks were. And it was really impressive. It was a really impressive throw for him to not only look at that spot, but know that he's got the strength to fire that ball in there fast enough over the middle of the field before those defenders can close on it. And that's exactly what happened. So to me, Seth, it is just the obvious arm talent from Drake Maye that is the reason why he's a starter. Like, that's the reason why you've got him out there, and that's what makes you so excited. And I think that's what gives you the there were people who were saying, he's kind of like a Justin Herbert light type of a player coming out of UNC, right? He's got some of those Justin Herbert tendencies and skill sets to him where he can get you out of a lot of trouble, and he could put a ton of stress on a defense. And we're watching right now, there's very few quarterbacks in the NFL that are playing the position better than Justin Herbert is right now. Over the last 4 weeks, Justin Herbert, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 13 big-time throws, and 0 turnover-worthy plays. I mean, that is the final form of what we could see from Drake Maye. And it was a lot of fun to watch even some of that in flashes against the Chicago Bears. So to me, I love what he's doing over the middle of the field. And when you say, like, all right, I do agree with you. You can't just do the quote-unquote a dumb thing once or even a handful of times throughout these games. Do you think for him it's like, is he testing things down the field? Is he just not seeing things properly? Like, obviously you talked about the interception against Chicago. I think that was one where maybe he just didn't even see the linebacker, but you also kind of got to feel that he's going to be there, right? You got to have a better feel for where coverage is going to be, and that will, you hope, get better as the season goes on. But is there anything in particular that you're watching him when it comes to, hey, limit those turnover-worthy plays a little bit more? Because we're already seeing you do the high-end stuff. That part's already there. But the next part of the journey is seeing defenses a little bit better and respecting defenses a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that, first of all, the Herbert thing is spot on. In terms of, like, once the ball kind of leaves their hands, and, like, the trajectory of the ball is very similar, I find. Obviously, the arm strength is both, A+ for both of them. I think with those turnover plays, I think they're more in the, I trust myself so much, I trust my arms so much. I don't think it's really like I don't see it, I don't get it, you know what I mean? I don't understand the coverage type of thing. It's more or less like I trust myself, and I think that's probably a great place to start, to be honest, right? Like, would you rather have a rookie quarterback start with like, let me just go out there and throw the ball, and I'm gonna make mistakes, but I'm gonna go out there and throw it. You'd rather take that and kind of reel it in a bit than the guy who I'm making up a guy here, but like the guy who's like just going to be a little too tentative, going to throw it short, not going to take risk. Like, you're a rookie quarterback. Now, obviously we've seen teams recently bench inexperienced quarterbacks that they shouldn't be benching, but at the same time, you probably just want to be able to just go out there and make all those high-end throws, and then if you have to reel it back later as you go on in your career, I think that's better. You want to test what you can and can't do in and especially for May in a season where obviously the Patriots are not going anywhere. He goes in as not really a savior for this team, right? This is not when Drake Maye goes in to replace Jacoby Brissett, this is not a situation where they said, "Oh my God, like he needs to come in here and we need to like win games and make the playoffs." Like it's a low risk, as low risk, as low stakes as playing being the starting quarterback in the NFL can be.
Sure.
But so that's like a good situation to come in and just test your arm strength and test all that stuff to go back, it's like I think he gets it. I think he just tries to do a little too much sometimes.
Oh, I think that's fair. Moving forward, you mentioned it's sort of a low-risk move, obviously getting him out there and getting him a lot of reps this year. The number one thing for the New England Patriots was, one, getting Gerard Mayo comfortable with being the head coach of this team, making sure the team rallies around him, setting up that culture. That's a really important part for the New England Patriots. But then two, obviously seeing what you have in Drake Maye, like allowing him to get that playing time, allowing him to get his feet wet, and you're hoping that next year you can really hit the ground running and really maybe accelerate that rebuild, accelerate that winning window. To me, when I look at this receiver room, you got Kendrick Bourne, you got Kayshon Boutte, you got Pop Douglas. They drafted Jalen Polk. They've got Javon Baker as well. KJ Osborne's on this team. I don't need you to give me like specifics, but watching how Drake Maye plays, for example, and thinking about Justin Herbert, right? I mean, you can think about Justin Herbert as well, and think about what type of receiver you've kind of wanted or thought about for Justin Herbert in this offense. Obviously, things are kind of grooving right now with the Los Angeles Chargers and their offensive philosophy, but is there a type of receiver that you would love to see New England go after, whether it's in free agency or whether it's sort of prioritize a skill set in the draft? Is it a big-time vertical threat that you would love to see in this offense with him? Is it more of this big-bodied, contested catch guy that you would love to see Drake Maye be able to give one-on-one opportunities to, a shiftier player in the slot to get some of those smaller things open? Is there a type of wide receiver that you would love to see him maybe on the roster, maybe not, just have more chemistry with and lean into this sort of receiver that he could be able to throw the ball to moving forward?
This is a deep cut, but the comparison I'd love, like the type of player I would love to see him with is a guy like, I don't know, Randy. You ever heard of this guy named Randy Moss?
I've
heard of this guy named Terrell Owens? You ever heard of this guy named like Andre Johnson? Like, that's really the type of guy that I would love to see him with. No, I think I think you probably want, I mean, it's tough. Like every type of receiver I'm going to say, my head automatically goes to the best version of that receiver.
Sure.
So if I'm saying like if I'm saying like a vertical threat guy, which I think makes sense for them given his arm strength and that ability, I don't want John Ross. I want Deshaun Jackson. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like it's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
So like, but I think that's the type of guy you want. I think they could use a bunch of different pieces. They could use an upgrade at every type of receiver. Like, let's be clear about that. But I think, and I understand that vertical receivers who can track balls in the air and make catches are not a dime a dozen. Like they don't fall off trees. So understanding that, but I would probably say slightly ahead of every other archetype of receiver, I'd say that vertical middle of the field post type of corner type of player.
I think that there's going to be There's going to be wide receivers that they're going to have the chance to get their hands on with that archetype, whether it's in this upcoming draft or free agency. But I agree with you, man. It's so tempting to, when you have a quarterback like Drake Maye with his arm talent, not say that, right? Because it's a player that, it's a 5-step, a 7-step drop, whatever. It's a play action. You're looking deep. They're splitting the safeties. They're getting past the corner. They're finding the soft spots within the vertical coverage. And so I think that it's hard to not want to find that type of a player with Drake Maye. So I agree with you. I'd love to see a little bit more of that. But, we'll get there with the offense. You don't want to – I'm kind of glad right now that type of receiver isn't there yet, because I wouldn't want him to force feed that, because then I feel like you might be stunting his growth, getting a lot of that underneath stuff or that more like in rhythm stuff. And I think the addition of a vertical wide receiver could actually be what is best for him. So let's talk about Russell Wilson next. But before we get into that, you guys who are watching the show live, you can see the hat that I have here. This is a Malin hat. This is my favorite hat that I have ever had. It is a fantastic hat, and you have to try these things, because whether you have a giant head or a tiny head like I do, they have all sorts of different sizes to fit you exactly the way that you want to. And the best part is they are so durable. No matter what you are doing, these Malin hats got you. Sometimes people use hats primarily to work out in, right? You're sweating, or you're running in the rain, or you just like to, you like to have that feeling of having a hat on when you're working out. It's less, formal. You're ready. You're there to, whatever your workout is, you're just there to do it. And sometimes you put on a hat and you feel good. Malin's going to be able to hold up for whatever workouts that you have. It's also nice enough, these hats are nice enough to wear, all right, Thursday or Friday after work, you're going to meet people for some drinks, or you're going out, or you're going on a date night, whatever. You could throw a hat on like this, and you don't look like a bum because you're wearing a dingy hat. Like, you've got a fantastic hat that you're working with there. I love them. I really do. They're sponsoring the show. Obviously, I have it on my head, but genuinely, I wear this hat all the time. I'd be wearing this hat in here for this show, even if they weren't sponsoring the show. So they're built to last. They're fantastic. They're water resistant. They're comfort fit. They've also got all different sorts of collections, which if you're looking on the screen, you can see it now. They've got ones that are a little bit more tailored to working out, a little bit more tailored to maybe if you're a runner and you're going to sweat a lot in it. They've got the thermal hats as well to keep you warm during the winter. You got to check them out. If you're looking for the world's most durable hat, look no further. Go to Malin.com, MELIN.com, and you can put these hats to the test yourself. They are fantastic. I guarantee that you are absolutely going to love them. And they got all different types of, like I said, styles, but also colors too, that'll fit whatever outfit that you got. So go check them out at Malin.com. Pittsburgh Steelers, Russell Wilson in particular. Man, good win. Look at the team, dude. 7-2, man. It's what Mike Tomlin does. I mean, I truly thought that this was the year where it was going to be like, all right, finally, the below 500 season for Mike Tomlin is coming. And here we are. They're 7-2. They just took down the Washington Commanders in Washington. The team is rolling. The defense is playing well. We knew that was not going to be a shock, but we didn't really know what we were going to get out of the quarterback position. And Justin Fields ends up starting the year. He ends up playing pretty dang well, at least the most confident and crisp Justin Fields that I feel like we have seen this season. They make a surprise move to Russell Wilson, and I think the return on investment has been fantastic. I think on this very show, we were talking about it after the first week that Russell Wilson was out there. And, obviously there was some rust with him coming off of that injury and not being in the starting lineup with this team yet this season. And he was still working things out. But I think even the flashes of what you saw there, I went, okay, I see why Mike Tomlin is making the change. Like, I see why Mike Tomlin is trying this out. And it is because Russell Wilson, as a deep passer, is getting more out of this passing game than Justin Fields was. When you look at what he was able to do against the Washington Commanders, nothing that really stood out in a major way on the common box score. 14 completions, 28 total attempts, so a 50% completion percentage, 195 yards. He had those 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. It was a lot of those big-time throws from Russell Wilson, but whether it was this past game or just what you have seen from Russ in the past since he became a starter of this team, Seth, what do you think about Russ's performance here in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think with this team in general, the defense is always going to keep them in as many games as possible.
Sure.
There's just so much talent on that defense. There is so much talent, starting with the D-line and then in the secondary. So that was always going to be a thing, and that's why they've been so good. That's why they're never under 500, right? Because that defense continues to be elite year in, year out. I think with Russ, I agree with you that it's the deep ball passing, because they've taken some hits. Like, I know they ran the ball pretty well, especially early against the Giants a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But their run efficiency hasn't been great since Russell Wilson took over. you knew that was going to happen, given that you don't have the gravity of a running quarterback like Justin Fields on their zone reads, and then you don't have the just him catching the snap and running the football, which is great for an offense. However, they weren't getting the ball down the field. And I don't know, it's like you watch it and you're like, man, I'm not really sure what Russell Wilson's doing other than just throwing jump balls to Pickens, and now, late in the game for the first time, and hopefully first of many times, to Mike Williams. But so you're looking at it, you're like, is this sustainable? Is this real? Is this real? Two things. It might be real because Russell Wilson has done this before in his career.
Right.
He hasn't done it in a few years, and that's kind of the issue. But he has. This is who Russell Wilson is. And then I'm coming around to this idea that the trajectory on deep throws, especially ones down the sideline, like vertical 9 routes down the sideline, there is a type of throw that needs to be that makes it easier for the receiver to catch it, and Russ throws those balls with a lot of air underneath them, so the receivers can go and adjust to the ball. And I'll always go back to a throw that Justin Fields made, I believe, on a Sunday night game against the Jets, where he was trying to find his big tight end Darnell Washington down the seam, and he needed to put a lot of air underneath the ball and let him go run into the end zone and catch the football. And he throws it way too much on a line, and there's no chance that Washington catches it. And that's the difference. And it's like, so you're losing a little bit in the run game, but if you're gaining so much more explosive plays in general and in the pass game, then it's fine, right? I don't see Russell Wilson being this insane quarterback right now. I still think there's throws that he could be making, or receivers that he's not seeing, but he makes it up with all this other stuff, which again, like, that's what he's done his whole career.
Right.
Like, he's made up for some of the shortcomings that he's had, or by being this kind of outlier type of player who can, scramble around. Obviously, he doesn't scramble as much anymore, or move as well anymore, but scramble around and throw these moon balls down the field, and maybe we're getting that again, and maybe that's enough. Like, with how good the defense is, with how good the running game, I think, still can be with the trio of backs they have. With getting Zach Frazier healthy, like, the running game can be okay. And then you pair that with the explosive plays in the passing game. Like, why not?
It is a formula that worked for Seattle in many years. And I think this is the formula that maybe the Broncos thought they could get. And for whatever reason, that was just not what was happening, whether he was with Nathaniel Hackett or Sean Payton. And here we are with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Arthur Smith is very comfortable allowing him to be exactly what he was when he was in Seattle, and that is this sort of big game hunter type of a quarterback. I mentioned the common stats. They don't really do Russ many favors other than the 3 touchdowns, but he had 3 big-time throws and 0 turnover-worthy plays in this game. So, okay, yeah, it's a little bit of feast or famine, but they also they have the team that allows him to be feast or famine, right? I think that's an important part as well. One, they've got a fantastic defense behind him, so if Russ takes his shots and they're not hitting in a certain day, they've got the defense to be able to keep them within football games. So you go, okay, well, this is just a math equation now. He will hit enough for us because our defense is able to keep the other team from scoring so often that we're going to win more than we're going to lose. So in that aspect, it is a little bit of a numbers game for the Steelers to be able to lean into for what he can do as a deep passer. Then you throw in what type of receivers they have with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. It's George Pickens. They just traded for Mike Williams. These are deep ball, moon ball type of receivers. And I think that it's going exactly into the type of quarterback that Russell Wilson is. Now, I get a little bit nervous when I talk about how legitimate this team is like a deep playoff run team, because it is a little bit boomer bust. You look at Russell Wilson, he's 3rd in the NFL right now in total average depth of target, or I should say just average depth of target. The only 2 quarterbacks that are
total averaging
depth of target. His ADOT's above 10, and the only other 2 quarterbacks that are above him are Jameis Winston and Anthony Richardson. And so this guy is pushing it down the field at a regular base, and I do get worried when the run game is not as efficient as it has been, because it wasn't as efficient this past game against the Washington Commanders. But previously, like, Najee Harris was on a roll. He was grading out very well. It was I think it was 3 straight 100-yard games for Najee Harris. And so they were running the ball fantastic. But when that is not the case, does the offense start to get a lot more frustrating, because he does not want to, or just cannot complete those 14-yard throws with enough regularity to actually move the ball down the field methodically without a run game to be able to complement it. Now, maybe you could say that for anybody, right? Okay, every quarterback needs a run game. Every offense needs a run game. But it will be interesting to see what happens when the run game is not as efficient as it needs to be, and we're not really hitting on those deep passes. Is that simply, okay, well, if that happens, we're probably going to lose the football game. Maybe the defense will win it for us, and maybe that's the formula we need. Maybe you just cannot cover all of your bases at the NFL level. But I do like what the Steelers are doing. I do love how they are leaning into Russell Wilson. I'm glad that you brought up the differences between him and how he throws the ball versus Fields and how he throws the ball, because I do agree with you completely. It's a little bit less in the run game, but the ceiling of the offense is higher with Russell Wilson, especially after the addition of Mike Williams. And so I think that the Steelers are very comfortable with where they are as a football team. I was worried about that being in the case going into the season, because the Steelers sort of always believe they're competitors, and sometimes it feels a little bit fool's gold-ish. But for this season, certainly with them making the change to Russell Wilson, Mike Tomlin obviously had a fantastic finger on the pulse of what his team was, what their ceiling was, and how he could raise it. And we're seeing that now with Russell Wilson. And I think that this win in Washington is a major sign that that is the case.
I'm just excited for this team. Like, they're a fun team, at least, right? They get after the quarterback on defense. That's fun. They play tight man-to-man covers. That's fun. And then on offense, they're throwing deep balls. Like, it's a team you want to watch, like, because they also feel like they're excited, right? Like, they feel like, when they got the big play, the big offside call to the jump that won them the game, basically, that sealed the game, basically, and everyone was going crazy on the field and dancing and stuff, and like they just look like a team that's having a lot of fun together. And like the next part is, like, also George Pickens is fun to watch.
Yeah,
he's a maniac, but it's really fun to watch.
He really is. No, it's true. I think that's a great way to put it. This team is. They're fun to watch, and the vibes are high in Pittsburgh, and they should be. They're 7-2. They're playing really good ball, and very clearly, you go into Washington and you beat that Washington Commanders team, you feel like you got a chance against anybody. So it'll be fun for the Steelers, who they highlighted on the broadcast. They have not played a divisional game yet, and so they've got quite the gauntlet of a schedule, playing the Ravens twice, the Bengals twice. I think they play the Bengals this upcoming week, if I remember correctly. No, they play the Ravens. They start with the Ravens, so they play the Ravens this upcoming week. So that'll obviously be a big test. We'll get to see how they face off against them, but they are at home, so I think that will definitely help them. But Russ has been a fun addition to this team. He really has. There are some things that school didn't really teach you, right? I mean, if you think back to it, think of all the classes that's like, all right, I'm not really using this in real life. Like, this isn't something that's actually helping me. How about a class that would have helped you with the financial world, right? Or at least set you up for financial success. We wish we kind of had that in high school when we were growing up. That includes somebody teaching you maybe what it would have been like, and some specific ideas to plan for your kids' financial future. Fabric makes it easy for you to set up an investment account for your child as they grow, and it'll help them prepare them for a great financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life. It was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kids' investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. The funds can be used on nearly anything when it comes to benefiting your child, for tuition, books, summer camps, after-school activities, all that good stuff. When they're adults, they can also use it for things like buying their first car, buying their first home, starting a business. It is all online, and setting up your UGMA account could take as little as 5 minutes. Get started investing with as little as $1 a day, and then manage your child's account and monitor their investments right from your phone. No contribution limits, multiple tax advantages, SIPC insured up to $500,000 plus no commissions and just a low flat monthly maintenance fee. Fabric has been partnered with Gerber Life, trusted by millions of families like yours for over 50 years. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That is meetfabric.com /PFFNFL, MEET, fabric.com/PFFNFL. This is a paid promotion by Fabric UGMA product. It is not for investment advisory services. Portfolios are managed by Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Custodial services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Terms apply. Learn more at meetfabric.com. Bo Nix, final quarterback that we want to talk about here on this show. I mentioned it, sort of teased it at the very top of the show. Bo did his part to go into Kansas City and Arrowhead to get them a divisional victory, but it was not meant to be as the Kansas City Chiefs blocked their final field goal to win the game. But Bo Nix in this one, 22 for 30, 215 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. When you look at the game from a PFF stat perspective, he had a 74.0 passing grade in this one. Had one big-time throw, 0 turnover-worthy plays, though I think that is important. Almost a 90% adjusted completion percentage, 88.9% adjusted completion percentage. Now, the average depth of target is lower for this one. It was a 6.4, but he still had the big-time throw to Courtland Sutton that was a major difference maker in this game. And even though it was not super explosive in the tape and on the stat sheet, it was a game that I really loved what I saw from Bo Nix in this one. I really did. This is a hostile environment, and I think that all that game experience that he had in college football prepared him for things like this, to be able to go into Kansas City and even give his team a chance to win the football game. And I think a lot of people got on him about, he can't throw deep, things like that. He's a screen merchant when he was at Oregon. Yeah, okay, the offense was obviously more tailored to those shorter passes, keeping things on rhythm, getting the ball in the hands of their playmakers, not a ton of air yards, a lower average depth of target, but it did not mean that Nix did not have the ability to open it up when the situation called for it. You saw that at Oregon, and I think you saw that again with the Denver Broncos. The Broncos really tried to confuse Nix. They tried to do a lot of simulated pressures. They had 5 guys on the line of scrimmage a handful of times. One, I want to give credit to the offensive line because I thought that they played a great game against a fierce and multiple Kansas City Chiefs defensive front. But I felt like Bo was great at seeing what he needed to see pre-snap, and the ball was able to get to where it needed to go quickly. Again, didn't light the world on fire. I know I use that phrase a lot, but Bo Nix was still doing enough in this game to get the Broncos a victory. And to me, I know there's no moral victories in the NFL, but you've got to be encouraged by how Nix has played 10 weeks through the season. And this game against the Kansas City Chiefs, albeit in a loss, is another example of that. So I was really impressed by how Bo was able to play. He played like a vet in this game, I thought, as just a rookie.
And it's a tough defense. Like, this is basically one of the best, if not the best defense in the NFL. I think we've spent a lot of time talking often where we watch a quarterback play against the Carolina Panthers defense and they play amazing, and we're like, yo, this he's amazing. Yo, you gotta watch this guy. And it's like, oh, actually, he just played against Carolina Panthers.
We turn into surfers. We turn into surfers when that happens. When we watch quarterbacks play against the Carolina Panthers defense, we just turn into Hollywood surfers. Is that what happens with that? That's
exactly
accent?
what happens. I'm not making any of this up.
Okay.
This is truthful.
All
this is factual.
Just wanted to make sure.
And so, like, and then we get too overhyped for playing against Carolina Panthers defense. Now, not to derail this whole conversation, but that thinking did lead me to bet a lot of my hard-earned cash on Daniel Jones last week, and it did not work out very well. However, with that said, he's playing. Bo Nix is playing against a really tough defense that plays really tough man-to-man defense. Like, not that they play man-to-man and on every snap, or like they're the top man-to-man team in terms of how often they play it, but when they do play it, or when they play zone, they get so physical, and it's tough to get separation against them. So for him to do that and find open receivers mostly on time, I think the Bo Nix thing is always going to be the same thing, which is he's not a great athlete. He's not a bad athlete for sure, but he's not like Drake Maye, like we talked about, and he's probably not in the top. I don't know. I don't want to say anything that's stupid here, but probably not in the top 15 in terms of like athletes at quarterback in the NFL. So he's got to stop like putting himself in bad situations. And you see that a lot where he'll get to the end of his drop back. He feels like he has space in the interior of the pocket, up in the pocket, and he just kind of takes off running. And then like if he sees someone open down the field, then he'll throw it. The issue is like his accuracy just like drops like crazy. And he does have the most dropbacks this year where he was he moved or he was moved off the end of his dropback spot. And that just can't be his game because there's so much good there in terms of understanding the route concepts, understanding the defense. When he wants to throw the ball on time, it's pretty good. It's just like he's not a good enough athlete, I don't think, where he can be that type of quarterback that's going to take off and run and do all that stuff. And I certainly don't think that's the quarterback Sean Payton wants either. So that's kind of where I am with him. Like it's been good. Like I to be honest, it's kind of been surprisingly good. Now, obviously, Sean Payton's his OC. Sean Payton's a good OC. There's there's O-line talent. There's a bit of receiving talent. So like there's been a good supporting cast. I think they've cut down on the playbook in a lot of ways. I don't think this is the full breadth of Sean Payton's playbook or what he would want to do even for a rookie quarterback. But at the same time, it's been good. I think the accuracy needs to be better down the field. Like there's a lot of issues. It's just like when you put it all together and you look at a guy who, like you said, is an older player, has been in a lot of good, hard situations, started his career in a big game versus Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, like a week one college football game where like your season was on the line basically. And so he's been in all these situations, and I agree that he's like everything kind of makes sense for him. I think just the output has to be better, but at the same time, like it's trending in the right direction. And like I said, like I could be wrong about it. Like he's better than I thought he would be in the NFL. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with him. Like it's been a pleasant surprise. Like he's not a complete throwing the ball short all the time. Like when he takes his chances, like you said, there's some plays down the field. The accuracy isn't spot on, but there's some big plays still.
Yeah, I felt like I believed in Bo Nix more than a lot of people did in last year's class. Now, I still had him ranked. I can't remember if it was like the high 20s or the low 30s. I still had him as QB, what would it have been, 4 or 5 in the class, because there was just a lot of really great QBs in the class. And I got a little bit spooked as the season kind of went on with him. And did he have the ability to really take what he had learned from Oregon, and it was a very sort of tailored offense that he was very, very comfortable and confident in? Would that confidence remain in Denver? But I saw there was a path to where he wasn't going to be terrible at the NFL level, especially when you lean on how much experience that he had. It started out slow out of the gate. 3 turnover-worthy plays against the Seahawks in the first game of this season, and then he had a turnover-worthy play in the next 2 contests. But then in each of the next 2 contests, I should say. So in 3 weeks, he had 5 turnover-worthy plays. And I think a lot of people were looking at Nix and like, oh, he can't play. Like, look at him. The NFL's, forced him to throw it deep down the field, and he can't do it. Over the last 7 weeks, he has had 1 turnover-worthy play. 1. And his average depth of target is higher than it has been in those 7 weeks than it was in the first 3 weeks. And in fact, he's had 3 games where his average depth of target is above 10, where he has not thrown a turnover-worthy play. Specifically against the Kansas City Chiefs, he is the only full-time starting quarterback that has played against the Kansas City Chiefs this season that has not recorded a turnover-worthy play. Every single other quarterback that the Kansas City Chiefs have played, Brock Purdy, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, all of them have recorded at least 1 turnover-worthy play when facing the Kansas City Chiefs. Bo Nix did not have any. And I know people might be like, well, he didn't get the victory. You guys understand. You were smart enough to understand. He did his part to put his team in a position to get the victory. And I think if that field goal actually goes in, there's a lot more national talk about Bo Nix. And I feel like he deserves to get that regardless of the fact that that field goal got blocked. I thought this was fantastic from him. It is a manifestation of all of the strengths that we talked about for Bo Nix coming into this, where it was that experience, that he wasn't going to get rattled, that he was going to get better as a deeper passer because Oregon was asking him to just do a lot of things where that was not a big part of their game plan. I love the fit with him getting to the NFL and getting to work with Sean Payton. I think it's a fantastic connection. Is it going to be perfect from here on out? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I have really enjoyed what I have seen from Bo Nix, mainly because I heard a lot of people say that he cannot play, that he was not going to be an NFL quarterback. And I thought, I don't think that. I don't think it's this home run guarantee because it never is. But to me, there was always a path for Bo Nix to look this way. And it's cool that he is showing up in this form because it's only making the league better, the quarterback class better. I mean, he's the second best quarterback from last year's class so far. He has to be. Drake Maye hasn't played enough games, in my opinion. Drake Maye obviously looks good, but Drake Maye, we've talked about him being a roller coaster, the 3 big-time throws, the 3 turnover-worthy plays, so he's still getting there. Bo Nix, in my opinion, very clearly QB2 so far in this season of how they are performing behind Jaden Daniels. And so I've loved what I've seen from Bo Nix. It's been a lot of fun to watch, and I'm excited to kind of see how it finishes down the stretch because this team is more in the hunt than what we thought they would be, and I think Nix is a big reason why. I also want to shout out the offensive line, kind of like I did at the beginning of the segment. They are playing really, really well, and anytime that's the case, I think if you give Nix even a little bit of extra time, he knows where to go with his eyes, and he's going to make the most of getting that extra time. He's not going to panic as much. You see that a little bit with Caleb Williams right now, right, where Caleb, he's getting a little bit of that extra time, but now he's feeling like, oh, extra time, that sort of turns into panic, and it almost makes him a little bit more indecisive. For Nix, that extra time is proving to be extremely valuable because he knows where he's going to go with the ball, where he's going to go with the ball after that. Any final Bo Nix thoughts? Any final thoughts on any of these quarterbacks, these rookie quarterbacks, or anything like that before we get out of here?
Yeah, I even thought Bo Nix was like pretty. Even though they got blown out by the Ravens 2 weeks ago, I thought he was like fine in that game too. So there's like I said, I think they're on a positive path here. I think as he learns, like I said, learns to play in the pocket better, and as Sean Payton puts more on his plate, that's when we're really going to see how good he can be. So it's exciting, I think, in Denver, especially with, again, like we talked about it with the Steelers. Like he gets to play with a sick defense. Like this is probably my favorite defense to watch in the NFL right now. Gets to play with a super sick defense, a defense that held Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs to like a low output. So I'm excited for that one. And I'll just add with Caleb Williams, I don't get it. It should be better, and it's not better, and it's concerning.
If you're subscribed to the PFF YouTube channel, you can see a much more thorough breakdown on exactly what Seth said, because we all do agree with it. We're going to be breaking that down a little bit with another live video when we go over the rookie review show. Myself and John Ledyard, we're going to dig into the Caleb Williams film and tell you exactly what we think is wrong and how it could get better. Appreciate everybody watching and listening to the QB Showcase show. For Seth, Galina, I am Trevor Sikkema. We will see you guys at the same time next week, post Week 11. See you guys then.